It was a miracle, Dave thought. He'd been rustling around through all of the debris in his car. Oh, and there was lots of debris to rustle through. For example, what looked like an old cigar, well, it turned out to be a mummified banana. Sports equipment, leftover takeout food, old sneakers, it was all there. Of course, not resembling any of our cars, right? And the miracle, well, on the driver's side, there was a seedling sprouting out of the floor mat, a small tree growing right inside his car. But this was Dave, Canadian hero, born from the writing of the great Canadian humorist Stuart McLean. This story, titled Tree of Heaven, was playing on The Current, the CBC Current Affairs show, on Easter Monday morning this past week. It was the perfect choice for the start of the week after Easter, because the typical images post-Easter are rebirth, new growth, new beginnings, a story about a new seedling growing in the most unlikely of places. Well, it suited the start of the week well. The seedling had taken root in some sand and some decomposing organic debris. It seemed to be thriving. Dave took care not to damage it every time he got in and out of the car. He tried to prevent his wife, Morley, from using his car. She, who had long ago given up to any way that she could attach a rational explanation to Dave's antics. To Dave, this tree, well, it was like a flower in the desert, and it grew. So Dave got some soil from the garden and built a little island around it on the floor mat, and he tried to water it, sometimes creating a flood and nearly washing it away. He had a dream one night, 3 weeks later, that this little tree was a struggle like life itself, and he must do something to make it thrive. So he got up in the middle of the night, and he got a shovel and he transplanted it to the back corner of the yard. Then he promptly forgot about it for another 3 weeks. When he remembered, he ran to the back corner of the yard, and there it was, growing up to his knees. Another couple of weeks, and it was up to his waist. He identified it then as a tree of heaven, a hardy urban tree that could grow even out of the crack of a sidewalk. And each spring, years later, it comes up, it looks dead, and then in an Easter moment, it springs to life. His job, he thought, was to watch and to wonder. Watching and wondering, it's a soulful occupation, isn't it? It can be meditative. Is watching and wondering the result the psalmist sought in Psalm 118 that I read a few minutes ago? I mean, many of the phrases in this psalm are well known to us. This is the Lord's doing, it's marvelous in our eyes. Or, oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. The verse that caught my eye was, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Save us, we beseech you, O Lord. O Lord, we beseech you. Give us success. Give us success. With an exclamation mark, no less. What does that mean, I thought, both individually and as a congregation, perhaps? Success is something we think about. More money, a better job with more authority, more exotic vacations, a performance maybe with a major choir or an opera. For congregations, well, is it More people in the pews, more money in the collection plate, more programs, greater diversity. Post-Easter is the time for a fresh start, or at least a fresh look at what we are doing with our lives and with our congregational efforts. Most of us don't spend our lives, as Dave tried to do, simply being able to watch and to wonder. We scramble through to-do lists. We wonder how we'll ever catch up with our emails. We go to bed thinking about things that need to be done, the rent that must be paid, food obtained, doctor's appointments to go to, and other worries. We may wake up with even more on our list and even more emails that have come in overnight. It's a wearing, continuous cycle that seems, well, unstoppable by times. Watching and wondering seems like a luxury. One book that I've been dipping into over the past couple of months is called Meditations for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. Its essential message is that we are only put on this earth for about 4,000 weeks, if we're lucky. So it follows that we might wish to consider how to use our time wisely. First, Berkman suggests, to give up the unwinnable struggle to do everything, to respond to all those emails, to complete everything on our to-do lists, because it's impossible. And we might as well stop trying to be perfect in all that we do, because that too, it's impossible. When we recognize that time is finite, we start to make choices on how to use that time. And these choices, well, they can cause us to concentrate on the things that truly count, to understand what our life with purpose might really look like. When we stop trying to be perfect in all we do and in all of our relationships, well, it frees us up to more energetically plunge into those relationships. And when we give up connecting our sanity with the impossibility of a state of control, it frees us to enjoy life in the moment. Similarly, with this congregation, if it has a clear view of its fundamental purpose and has the discipline to make choices about aligning purpose and values with money and people, then it can create a firm foundation, allowing it to be open to the awesome and the unexpected. Without that foundation, the result could be a flailing about in an undisciplined manner, not fully capturing purpose and wasting scarce resources. As a leader in this congregation, seeking to consider an answer to the question, what is success? It seemed to me to be appropriate to ask, well, what would Jesus think to be a success? This being the week post a remarkably busy Holy Week, I gave myself the grace to not try to answer this question perfectly myself. So I asked ChatGPT, which to my mind, having last used it in a sermon at least a year ago, seems to be improving considerably. Now, in talking to Chat, the value is all in the question. So I posed this question. If Jesus was to define success in 500 words, what would he say, with biblical references, of course? I didn't like the disorganization of the first answer, so I asked for 3 main points and to put it in a sermon form just in case I got overwhelmed by all of the emails this week and needed a quick sermon. The 3 points. 1, Success is faithfulness, not fame. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your master. From Matthew in the parable of the talents. It was not well done, good and famous servant, but faithful servant. Faithful being characterized as honest work, quiet service, and integrity, even when no one is watching. Point 2, success is measured by love. From John, by this you will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Success is not measured by fame or by how much you earn, but how you love. Love your neighbor, because whatever we do for the least of these, we do for him. Feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, caring for the sick. Success measured by love. Point 3, success is surrender to God's will. Not my will, but yours be done. To gain our lives, we must lose them for his sake. Are we holding on to something that God is asking us to surrender? The path to success may lead through loss. The concept in this third point is well explained by Richard Rohr in his famous book, Falling Upward. We need to understand that our lives are not focused on gain, fame, or living into material well-being, but are focused on what God seeks of us. So if I were to summarize the answer to this question, what is the success we beseech? It's to seek a life with the purpose of understanding what God calls us as disciples to do with faith and with love. That would be, according to ChatGPT, Jesus' answer. How does that same analysis apply to this congregation? Is success to be found in feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, discerning God's purpose for the resources Met has? Does this mean then not seeking fame or wealth, but providing quiet service for those in need of love, whoever they may be? The psalmist beseeching for success seems easy. The tough and challenging part is to understand what does it mean in our context. When we clear away the to-do lists and the debris of life and understand that each of our resources is finite, we are left with a vitally important question. Where are your passions or life purposes that shine through for each of you and for each of us? That answer, well, it will be different. As I said several months ago, I've spent time discerning my life purpose, my ministry purpose, to observe what gives me energy and to understand, I think, where God is nudging me. I've acted on the results of this discernment. I encourage each of you to ponder how to use your time and your resources wisely, examining the question through the lens of how Jesus would define success. It's a good place to start, but any discernment will not end there. Give yourself the opportunity, the head space, the heart space to explore, to watch, and to wonder as Dave did with his little tree. Easter time is a good time to think about, where do you want new growth? What are you prepared to surrender, to prune back? And what might you want more of? For the congregation, the time is equally good. Did the strategic plan get it right on the fundamental purposes of this congregation? Is it a true guide on how resources should be spent? Does growth in the places noted make sense? Is it aligned with the Christian fundamentals of our denomination? Oh, it's an imperfect process, and there's no correct answer. However, if we are being intentional as we individually or as a congregation, running the risk, perhaps, of being adrift, or are we leaning in with energy, passion, and purpose? As is said in Matthew, what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? In conclusion, I want to extend my thanks to all of you for your love, your wisdom, and your guidance, to the congregation's leaders for the enormous time and commitment they make to Met and for their personal support of my ministry, to the staff team, particularly Jason and Jonathan and Mark, and more recently David, for the camaraderie, the laughter, the commiserations, and shared pain by times, and the collective freedom to be ourselves, to connect to God through one another, and to seek to discern God's will as expressed by this community. Finally, and most importantly, to my wife, Pat, and our family, for all the love, the patience, and the support that I've received. Any of the success that each of us finds is always with the loving support of those that are closest to us. I wish each of you, individually and as a congregation, and its leadership, God's love and support. Met has great opportunities to thrive as a center for a faithful connection to God. I pray that it may be so. Amen.